Well, Colin, I am so excited for this. Welcome to the All Access Pass to the Backstage podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I just can't wait to. We're just going to get down to business, man. We have a lot to discuss, and you've done so many cool things. I think a lot of people will be absolutely intrigued and inspired by your story because there's a lot of people going through thinking about doing what you've done, stuff like that. So let's
Yeah,
just go ahead and jump right in.
for sure.
Um, let's warm up, do a couple warm up questions here. But really what I want you to do is describe um kind of how you came into dentistry. Like how did that you being in dentistry start? Just,
Yeah.
in a few words.
So for sure, my easiest way is that my dad's a dentist. So I was born into it, I guess. My mom is a nurse practitioner. My dad's a dentist, and so definitely came from a healthcare family, and I knew that healthcare was going to be a part of my journey from a pretty young age, and I was still trying to figure that out when I was in college. And I was fortunate enough that my oldest brother is a medical doctor, a real doctor, as I like to say. And he was going through medical school, and I got to kind of see his journey as he transitioned from medical school to residency and trying to understand what his long-term journey was going to be like, and realized that that did not provide the same level of control of his schedule and
Mm.
kind of family life balance that I wanted to have. And so I felt like dentistry was a perfect fit, but obviously heavily biased by the fact that my dad is a dentist. I also have an older brother. My business partner and brother's a dentist, and my wife is a dentist. So I often joke that none of my kids are allowed to be dentists because we've met our quota.
It's running in the veins. I
It
don't
is.
know.
It
I don't
is.
know. That's
Yeah.
going to be a tough one to hold back. Well, so you've definitely had your journey, and we'll kind of go a little bit more into now the journey of dentistry. But before we get started, since we're on the Backstage podcast, how did you get connected with the Backstage?
So I was at Dykema with my brother. We went to the Dykema conference in August to just learn more about other people's journeys. I think that dentistry is an amazing space, an amazing field. I love it for so many different reasons. I think it's the greatest profession there is. Um, but it can be isolating and lonely when you're going through that journey, even with, your brother and business partner and best friend, just because you're kind of in this echo chamber with each other. And so we went to Dykema to get back out there a bit. We've done some masterminds and been a part of some groups in the past, but felt like we had not gotten back out and talked to enough people in the recent past. And so we decided to go to Dykema. And when I was there, met Elijah at kind of one of the small group sessions talking about some focused problem stuff. And he seemed like a good, energetic guy. And we started to connect after that. And then he talked to me about Backstage Mastermind, and it filled a lot of what we were looking for when we went to Dykema in the first place, which is just being in a safe place to share and explore and ask tough questions, and with other high achieving people that are looking to solve similar problems. I also thought it was interesting that it was not just dentists. Most of the groups I've been in have been just dentists. And the more you scale a business, the more you realize that the business problems are the business problems, whether you're selling a widget or doing dentistry. Problems exist at certain scales, and sometimes other fields offer creative solutions that you can't see because you're too close to the problem. So that was an attractive idea to me as well, especially since all these companies serve the the market that I'm in, and come at it from a different perspective. So it seemed like a good fit. So that was it.
Now you own and run a group practice. So let's tell the listeners like kind of your journey in, like why
Yeah.
you were at Dykema, kind of where you're at with that, because um, you know, you're looking for like to be with these like-minded, innovative people, right? Really diving in. You said dentistry is the best profession, which like lit
Yeah.
me up. It was one of my questions, like what lights you up about dentistry?
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Yeah.
everything. You can
Yeah.
even go into a little bit more about that. But tell us a little bit about, just so we see where you're coming in at, you know, what kind of practice or practices are you running right now? Tell us a bit of your story.
Yeah. So my brother and business partner is also a dentist, and we started what is now Barbaro Dental Group back in 2016. He had just taken over a single practice, his first office after leaving an associateship in a small town in North Carolina. I was just moving back to North Carolina from Texas with my wife, my pregnant wife, and first daughter, and also looking to buy a practice. And we decided that it would be a lot more fun to go on this journey together and instead of separately. And so, as I was looking for a practice, we said that we should, you know, maybe not operate under the same roof, but operate under the same business. And that's how Barbaro Dental Group was formed. And we've acquired about a practice a year since then, and now we're at 10 practices in the state of North Carolina, a radius of around 2 hours outside the Raleigh area.
Mm,
And we go from kind of the middle of the state to the coast. And it's been a really fun, interesting, exciting, um, sometimes trying and difficult journey.
yeah.
But yeah, so we're all GP, and the practices range from one doc to three docs in size, a heavy mix of lots of procedures. We like dentists who want to comprehensively take care of patients, um, and so yeah, as I said, we have grown steadily over the past 10 years, and we just really value relationship based care.
Mm,
Um, I often joke that I didn't get into dentistry because I was obsessed with teeth. I got into it because I was obsessed with people. And
mm,
that's kind of one of our main mantras is we don't treat teeth, we treat people. And I think that those relationships are really what fill us up. And I think that as dentistry grows and gets consolidated and becomes more what medicine has become, that's what gets lost first, is that kind of patient interaction. Obviously, you try and focus on that with your brand stuff
mhm.
and understanding the importance of that connection. And people want to go somewhere where they're not just a number.
Yeah.
And so I think that the money that's coming to dentistry has done a lot for access to care and helped a lot more people to get taken care of. But for those patients who want that more personal experience, that relationship based mentality that existed for a really long time, we want to be the flag bearers for that and say, like, we are always going to have practices and under our flag that really stand for that relationship based care. And so that is how we recruit docs that want that same thing for them. Want to practice at a really high level, but get to know their patients and take care of them through generations and see their grandparents as well as their kids. And it's just, in our opinion, the most fun way to practice is that way. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was so perfect. It made me think of a few other questions, but I guess, because I have a lot of clients that have multi
Yeah.
locations and they're, from 2 to 3 to 4 to 10, up, kind of walk through because we talk about what are the problems, right?
Yeah.
Businesses that are helping supporting dentistry, and group practices, emerging groups like yourself, kind of walk through just for our emerging group docs, like your journey from two locations to like what you kind of ran into, but you kept wanting to grow at a certain point to that 10 location, like kind of the journey of that. And then, where do you see yourself in the future? Are you guys kind of
Yeah.
plateaued there? Like, what is the future looking like for you guys?
From 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, however you want to say it, was with a lot less clarity than I think we have now from 10 to, you know, who knows what. We don't have an upper limit. But so, yeah, the answer to your second question is yes, we want to keep growing. The answer to your first question ties into that. It's a bit more nuanced, but you, I was just saying this on a podcast the other day, but when you're a good dentist, what that really means is you connect well with people so they trust you, and then they believe what you're asking them to do for their oral health, and then they do it, and then you have more people do that, and then you see more patients and you make more revenue and you grow the practice, and then you have to add another hygienist and maybe another doc, and it builds this false narrative that you're a really good practice owner, and that's not the case. You're a really likable person and you're in a field where that matters. When you scale from your brick and mortar location to a practice outside of your immediate domain, you realize that very quickly because you're not having all the conversations in the day that lead to the success of the practice. And I lecture to residents a lot. And one of the things I say to them is people don't scale, systems do.
Mm,
You fall victim to this narrative that you have good systems when you have a successful practice, but most often with most dentists they don't. They're just really successful at being a person and being a dentist. And so from really 1 to 5, that was super painful just on so many different levels because you're practicing a lot of dentistry, you're in the chair all the time. You don't even know who to hire to help the other offices out. And so you're constantly getting questions about things you don't really know the answers to. Nothing's really standardized because you haven't spent enough time to do that. And so you're just a firefighter. You're constantly putting out fires and then you back into some solutions because you put out the same fire in 3 different locations in the same way, and then that's your system. And that is a really common part of a lot of people's journeys. And that was definitely the case for us. Then I think about practice 5, we started to really get things together and say, okay, we can't do this anymore. We need to have some more centralized systems that we then deploy out. And then like, here's the level of wiggle room we'll have and how we'll let people still make decisions and not micromanage, but give them enough guidance to be successful making decisions and troubleshoot problems in a way that I want them to, in a way that still represents the brand we're trying to present and the quality of care we're trying to deliver to the patients. Because ultimately, that's what we're most passionate about. And that then you kind of take that for as far as it can go. And then you realize you have to start taking things off the plates of offices so that they can do a better job on the patient care side.
mm,
And you have to centralize teams and services. And that then involves this whole other thing of, okay, well, how does communication and information travel between office to the centralized location? How many people staff that? What's their job like? What's the turnover like at that centralized location? What's their satisfaction like? Because they're not patient facing, but maybe came from an office in the past. And then now we've kind of started to solve that problem. So that's why we want to continue to grow. I think that the
mm,
like anything in life, the better you get at solving problems, the more you look for those problems to solve. And then you just want to keep growing and growing and growing because that's the fun part if you enjoy the journey. And we really love the journey. And so we are at 10 practices and we've made a ton of mistakes and we've learned a lot. And we want to just keep learning and keep growing. And I think that, in a couple of years, we'll be at 20 offices and then 30, and then who knows. But there's not like a specific number or a specific revenue goal or a specific anything. Just we really love doing what we're doing right now. And we want to keep stretching that.
It's interesting your story and how you and your brother are doing this because I talk to so many people with groups and the ones that really love it. And like I see it just your eyes light up when you're talking about it. It's because we know that they're really good dentists, like they're fixing things and there's like they love doing that reconstructions and comprehensive dentistry. And then when they go out here, they're like loving the business mind of it, like they're growing, like you love to build,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's just it's within the groups um that it really lights them up still because there's a lot that are a big hot sweaty mess and they can
oh
be
yeah,
the best human beings. They cannot be the best human beings. Like there's just everybody's, out there, and that's where I love your story on how much you love your community, how much you love your team, and trying to grow people too.
yeah,
Right. And that's where I think it's really important for us to support emerging groups, especially in communities, and not making people just numbers and the associates just numbers and stuff, because then the quality of life goes down.
for sure. For
Right.
sure.
So I'm just so appreciative of what you and your brother are doing,
Thanks, Shane.
because it just makes everybody better and we want to support that. But I think your story is super strong. Now, you guys have figured out a lot of things. Give me a couple of like pivotal moments that you realize, like, oh my gosh, what this industry needs, like what we don't know, or what you guys had to figure out. Who really helped you, or how did you guys figure out those tough problems when you were at those breaking points of the business?
Yeah, I think that people discover problems in different ways. There's a lot of different personality types and different ways to rate people. From a Colby standpoint, my brother and I are both quick starts. And if you're a quick start, that means you tend to find a problem when it hits you right in the face. If you're a fact finder, that means you're probably going to sniff that problem out way before it gets there and potentially avoid it. And so you have to develop a hard head because you're going to run into a lot of walls. And I think that we've run into most of them. So yeah, I think that from that sense, we just advocate for, we know we're gonna hit kinks. We know we're gonna have problems. We need to educate our teams to let them know that we're gonna have problems, and that's okay. We're dedicated to working through those problems. We won't accept failure. We're gonna use that as a tool to find success on the other side of it. Um, and so where have we hit that? We've hit that from, obviously losing team members and having certain systems fail along the way. I think that for Justin and I, kind of learning that scalability problem, the most specific story I can give you is we just taken over our fourth practice, and we had not done enough due diligence, and we knew that it was a great opportunity from a numbers on a page standpoint and location and a lot of the things that we had measured at the time. But close on the practice, close on the building, go into the office. We're supposed to be operational on Tuesday because Monday was going to be Labor Day, which is also the birthday of my oldest daughter. And the other practice that we had taken over had been relatively easy. And Justin and I are in there, and it's like 1 a.m. on Saturday, and we're just cleaning out mess after mess after mess of expired stuff. And it was just, we just sat there and looked at each other. I said, "How the hell did we get into this, man?" Um, and
Whoops.
yeah, more specifically, how the hell are we the ones doing this? Like, this is not our greatest
Mm.
time value. Um, and I think just the pressure of that moment between feeling like, okay, we got in a little bit over what we thought we were in, and can we get what we need to get here from the other offices by Tuesday to open the practice that we want to open and represent, or do we need to cancel patients, which is obviously not what you want to do the first day you're operational. um, can I be a good dad for my daughter on her birthday? Can I be a good, husband for my wife who's trying to plan for that? It was just so many brick walls to run through at the same time. We said, like, this is not going to work. We need to fix this. And so then that starts the process of hiring, like hiring people on your regional team. And then you don't know what to look for. So, you succeed in some ways and fail in others, and you learn from that. And then you look for a different type of hire or a different team member. And we still learn that lesson. We have that conversation all the time. When we go to scale, what's the next person we need? And that's not the same for everybody, because Justin and I have certain skill sets that we can compensate for, and then there's others that we can't. And so different people like to look at a problem through kind of their skill set. So they'll say, like, hey, you really need this because that's their focus. But it might not be the thing to get you there faster. And so really evaluating your own business and saying, what's going to help us propel? Who's the next hire that takes enough problems off our plate so we can focus on the things we're really good at and pour gasoline on that fire. And so that same process has helped us over and over again, and we really learned it at that practice number 4.
And I love that you guys had a big snafu and it was kind of early on,
Yeah, for sure.
but you had and what I'm hearing a lot from your experience is you guys have a really strong mindset, right? It's
Yeah, I
like
would say
no
so. Yeah.
matter what,
Yeah,
we're gonna learn from this, we're gonna grow. And I think dentists, business owners need to recognize that a lot. I mean, our business is our mindset. And
yeah,
to really set that and be around people that help us with the better mindset, even when we're hiring,
for
right?
sure.
Be around those positive people. And you kind of said that too. You're like, what are our strengths? What lit us up? What were we good at? Really getting that dialed in. And then we hired around that to support us. And I
Yeah,
thought that
absolutely.
was really brilliant. Because it's not just getting somebody with a title, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, we've made that mistake.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And it's you do more of who do we need around us that builds our ethos around our energy and everything else. So Emerging growth. I'm going to ask you a different question here. I mean, kind of going into what you guys are building out, but you and your brother, you've been doing this for a while. I've been in dentistry since 1987, if you can
There
believe
you go.
that. My marketing agency since 99, and I've
Awesome.
never seen so many changes, right, in
Yeah.
dentistry and human beings themselves. But where do you see dentistry going in the next 5 years? What's your guys' pulse on that? What's your feeling?
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously we understand the same thing from an AI standpoint that everybody understands, which is it's going to change who and how we hire and what gets done by people versus not. I think a lot of that's exciting, especially on the insurance side. Um, it's hard to find people really passionate about that. It's not fun to sit on the phone with insurance, and so that's we can now take those people and help them focus on problems they want to solve. And so I think that's the stuff that everybody sees as really obvious. And I think that AI will do a lot of good things to help patient care from that sense because the more financial clarity patients have, the better they can make decisions. And I think a lot of these AI things will solve those problems. But I think that's probably the most obvious one. I think the thing that we're really feeling now and trying to solve for more is the provider happiness component. Um, Everybody talks about work-life balance now. And that is a shift, especially in healthcare, post COVID, that has continued to accelerate is younger
Huge.
providers not wanting to come out guns blazing and just really wanting different things than I or Justin wanted. And Justin and I always, tell each other we love the grind. Like I really love to work. I like to work a lot. And that's in the dental chair, it's out of the dental chair. And so when you are trying to interact with people who don't have those same goals, it's just like, okay, well, awesome. You're still a great dentist. You're still a great hygienist. You're still a great assistant. How can we capture your talent and try and creatively use that and still keep a practice open that can serve patients a certain number of days a week? And I think that problem is going to become more and more challenging as, people try and decide what they want out of this industry. And that's just a different mentality than kind of what dentistry was before healthcare, really before COVID. But we think that problem is going to continue and I call it a problem from the sense of staffing, just because as people want more work-life balance and to choose their hours more selectively, it becomes a how do you keep this practice open enough days or times a week to take care of patients and have quality and consistency of care, because that's what you're balancing, right? Is how can you cash in on all the promises you're making to patients to say, we want you to have the same provider, we want you to have the same experience, but we're going to have a couple different teams doing that. So that's a problem that we're trying to figure out how to solve. And I think that will be one that requires a lot of attention, especially as AI makes people have to work less in general. So I don't have the answer for it, but that's one that we think about for sure.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll just say it to you straight because that's just how I talk. But I think that is one of the biggest is for these owner doctors to find and build relationship with their providers, their
Yeah,
associates, their hygienist, their team, because they have big dreams and stuff like that. But remember what I said with COVID, it's technology, it's marketing, it's people. Like
yeah,
psyche, there's something that massively shift. And like me, I'm a grinder. Like I love,
yeah,
I speak that language, and I love it. So we see that, and I think it's really pushing. I think it could be for the better. Like this problem, if you build out that passion for the
yeah,
people and that culture, ultimately it could be better for everybody. But
yeah,
there's
100%.
give and take there too,
For sure,
right?
for sure.
But that is a big problem. Like, and we've seen that, and moving forward, right? What do we see dentistry in the next 5 years? It's really paying attention to building up that team and that culture, and getting those problems solved, for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and what we see, what that ties into what I'm seeing in dentistry in 5 years, and kind of it's a benefit to you, are those doctors, they don't really want to have their own practice, right?
Yeah.
In the next 5 years, it's like we have emerging groups. Maybe they're at about 30, 40%. There's some DS groups that's kind of hidden. Everybody doesn't know what groups, how many groups
Yeah.
truly are. But I think it's for the better, especially with the emerging groups like yourself that have the heart and can, if you solve that big problem with these associates coming out, right, to make them your associates, and that they can really produce and take care of your community and bring good impact for the practice, for the community, doing good dentistry that you're
Yeah.
wanting them to, they have to be well supported. They don't want to do their own practice. So we're seeing that 30, 40% of emerging groups going easily within 5 years to 70%.
Yeah.
In maybe 10 years, even more so. So there's always going to be the private practice, right? Don't
For
worry about
sure.
that, doctors that are listening with your private practice, but you have to be out in network or fee for service. It's like it's a patient experience. Those that will really blossom and people will be looking for that experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we can do that within the emerging groups and have that heart and still have that patient experience instead of more of a corporate experience, let's just say it that way. That's where we really want, I think the sweet spot is in this massive, I mean, it's been happening for the past 5, 7, 10 years,
Yeah.
but it's like a hockey stick right now.
For sure. For sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the market's gonna definitely continue to consolidate, and medicine is a really good thing to look at from that sense, and see what the future looks like. And yeah, there's still dermatology practices, and there's still
Mhm.
family physician practices that
Sure.
exist in a private practice standpoint, and I think that's true and will be true for dentistry forever. But to your point, those practices are going to need to be unique in a way that they can find their patient population, and serve the people that want to be served, and find those patients, because a lot of people choose healthcare out of convenience,
Yeah.
and so you have to be more creative with how you're trying to attract and solve problems for those patients, to make them say they want to be inconvenienced to come to you, because that's really what it comes down to, is if you're going to stay in that space. But yeah, people definitely, to your point, I think that's the trade-off. Is when I was coming through dental school, and before me, everybody who came out was basically encouraged to be a practice owner, because it just made the most sense. And as I talk to more young dentists, or more dentists who are about to graduate, that's definitely less and less a part of people's vision. And so that, again, there's going to be more space for people who want multi-practice ownership, but you have to support them in a way that it makes sense for them, because there's going to be more options. And so I like that. I mean, competition in that sense drives, I think, growth for everybody. If we can serve providers better, they'll take better care of their patients. I always say that to our teams. We need to find that sweet spot between pushing hard enough that you're taking care of the most people you can, but that you're really happy doing it. Because when we have happy providers, when we have happy front desk people, patients have better experiences, and that definitely levels up patient care. And when you don't, when people feel overworked, when people feel unappreciated, they don't bring the same energy, and it just drives the whole experience down. And then that's how patients experience what they always talk about, they hate about dentistry, is just being this kind of uncomfortable, anxiety provoking space. And so yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good to keep us driving towards creating better environments for our providers, so that they can continue to make better experiences for our patients.
So let's have some straight talk here,
Yeah.
right? Because you have a group and you're growing your group
Yeah, for sure.
and very heart-centered for hopefully some associates that are listening, some maybe and we're also seeing a lot of doctors that have their practices, but they're done. Like they don't want to do it
Yeah.
anymore. They're ready to sell and they're willing to stay on for another 3, 5 years, that sort of thing. So you kind of have both of those kind of situations happening around there. Because I hear also, right, but you can promise the moon. Groups promise the moon to the associates or, purchasing another practice, for these doctors, and then it falls short. And maybe it's sometimes a little bit more with the corporate. side of it. But what do you guys tell me about like what is that experience in working with you and your brother? Just to even give emerging groups ideas on how they're building those relationships with the doctors and associates coming in
Yeah,
to your group.
I think that the sweet spot we're in right now, and what we can really do better than most for our providers is mentorship. Um, you know, I think that anybody who leads any organization, their main job is to carry forth the vision that people are buying into. And we're still at a size where we have a lot more resources and more time to really cash in on mentorship, which is what most young docs I talk to want. They want to be an amazing dentist, but
Mhm.
the environment is not really set up for mentorship because most dentists who are hiring a second doc are hiring that doc because they need them to work. They're too
Yeah.
busy. They need them to do the dentistry. And we obviously are two dentists running a group. We practiced at a really high level and continue to. And so I think that we are in this unique spot where we can help dentists work through a lot of different struggles. And that's patient care, that's running a schedule, that's the emotional stress of, just dealing with patient care because it's stressful. It's how do you handle that both logistically and mentally. And so because we're at this smaller size in the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of attention that we can pay to our docs. And I think the question is, how do we continue to do that at scale so that they still have that interaction? We still keep the soul of what we're trying to build, and really, really closely, water those seeds and foster that environment in every practice as we grow and scale. But yeah, I think that nobody wants to be a part of a group just to be another person in another practice under somebody's name. It's just, there's nothing exciting about that. Um, and so the more passionate we are about patient care, the more we talk about the fun things in dentistry, and how we can change lives, and how we can have an impact. That resonates a lot with our docs and our teams because they also want to be a part of that. And so yeah, if you ask me what I think we do best, it's definitely mentorship, and not just the clinical stuff, not just like how you should do this case, but all the other sides of dentistry that make that difficult and stressful, and all that goes into it. And I think that the groups our size can do that well, especially if you are a dentist-led group. And that is something that will set you apart from the larger groups who don't have as much high touch just based on size.
It's so true. It is everything that they want.
Yeah.
It is truly everything that they want. Just because I've had so many intimate conversations with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's needed, right? Because it's kind of it's a big problem. It's funny, my next question was, what was your personal philosophy about leadership and culture that sets your work apart? I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
part of it. Is there anything else that you would add for the whole team or
Yeah. I just gave a lecture literally this morning to UNC dental students, and I lead most of my lectures to residents and students with the same thing, which is Simon Sinek's book, Find Your Why,
Mm,
and start with why. Because if you can lend purpose to what you're doing, it will make anything more enjoyable. But if you don't, it makes everything miserable. And that same theory has been just reinforced over and over and over again with research. And Angela Duckworth has a popular book called Grit, and she talks about that
mhm.
same idea as well, which is just two people can do the same exact action, and one can be miserable and one can be over the moon excited. And the difference is the purpose. What purpose are you putting in what you're doing? And so much of healthcare, especially dentistry, when you're working on anxious patients in a small space that's wet, that you need dry, and they're gagging, and the mouth is a hard environment, it's just not easy work. And it's a lot of stress. And if you're just looking at treating that tooth, then you're going to be miserable. And so I challenge our docs a lot, and just our hygienists and everybody, just what are you showing up to do today? You're not here to clean teeth. You're not here to drill on teeth. Like, you're here to take care of people. And that is an amazing thing. It's an amazing responsibility. And by the way, you're blessed enough to be a part of this really small subset of people that has a skill that you can touch someone and heal them. Like, that's crazy. You should really bask in that. But if you just focus on the patient that was a pain in the butt, or the patient who gagged, or the patient who wouldn't, stop coughing or whatever, it turns that same thing into this kind of miserable experience. And it's just a mindset shift of like, we get to do this. We are blessed enough to do this. I was put here in front of this person to take care of this person. And I buy into that a lot. And I think that that mindset shift has to penetrate more so that people can be happier and take problems head on, and challenge themselves to not avoid, and really fix things. And so I would say, from a leadership standpoint, at every level in our organization, I'm really challenging people to find their why, and they need to bring that to the table to be really good at whatever they're doing. But it'll make them happier. I always say, when you come to work with us, I want to fill your cup so you can go home and be a better person to your family. If you come here and we're draining your cup every day so that you're a worse husband, a worse wife, a worse mom, a worse dad, then I don't want you here. Like, I want this to fill your cup so that you're better for those when you get home. And obviously, we're all going to be exhausted. We're all going to deal with the normal things of work anywhere. But if you can find that purpose, then you will be filled up. And if you can't, you'll be drained every day. So yeah, I think from a leadership standpoint, and kind of my whys connecting with people to try and inspire that growth, whether it's in dentistry and treatment planning, or the young women that we work with across the board. I really think that's a bigger impact that we can have, and that excites me a lot. I think that organizationally is one of the things that Justin and I are really passionate about. Is we're in this field where we have so many young women who did not have the opportunity to have the education that I got, and we get to meet them at a point in life where we're this professional, safe environment they can come to work every day. And that's an awesome job to have. And then we also have this ability to elevate them up through this organization that we built, to give them opportunities for jobs that they might not have been able to get before, by knowing and learning an industry. And that's a great responsibility to have. And so dentistry touches all that. And it's why I'm so passionate about it, and why I think it's the greatest field, is because, like, I can be cutting teeth for a filling in one room. At the same time, I'm helping a young woman change her life from being an assistant to an office manager to potentially a regional, and like giving this pathway, even if it's not with our organization. Like, they're learning skills that translate, and that is awesome. And to be in an ability to educate in that way is super exciting. But again, it just all comes from that passion of why, and like wanting to push them to learn skills and grow, because I like to grow. And so it's one of our core values. And I always tell people when we hire them, like, if you don't have a positive attitude and you don't like growth, you will not like it here. No matter what you're doing. I don't care what you're doing, you're not going to like it here. If you want to grow and you want to bring positivity, like, I want to take you as far as I can take you. And if I don't have a job for you, great, go somewhere else. But like, I've at least gotten you there. And so, yeah, I love that. I could, blabber on about that all day, but I think that inspiration and that purpose and finding your why is just, it's really impactful for me.
Um, I like got chills. Like, I mean, I've done marketing for 26 years, and I'm like, you are a like gold, right? Because it's like, how do you take someone's story and passion, right? Because we've got on, let me tell you, with many dentists, and you're like, oh my gosh, we can't market that. No one's gonna want that. No one
Yeah,
wants that, right? And but even how you're talking about your whole organization and what this organization, I mean, truly, I'm not just trying to say that, like, I mean this from the bottom of my
yeah.
heart. That is just absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you.
Colin, yeah, this is probably why you guys have been so successful and have, impacted so many people's lives, and you want to do more of that. And
Yeah, for sure.
that's kind of like why I'm loving hearing your story and your why, is because hopefully this helps reach the people that can also be impacted by your guys' strong vision,
Yeah.
and you helping other people, solve their problems and inspiring them in their groups, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully so. I appreciate that compliment. And yeah, I know, hopefully it hits somebody in the right spot to maybe identify with that.
So let's go into like just a couple more questions. This has been absolutely phenomenal. I was excited about this interview, but I'm like, this has just been spectacular. Anyway, so let's say a doctor has a single practice and he's really thinking about, I really want to go multi-location. Like
Yeah.
I want to do these things. If let's say I'm that person, what advice, if we were just sitting knee to knee having a beer together, what would you give me? And maybe thinking about some misconceptions they might have, or
Yeah, I have this conversation a lot with my closest friends who have one practice and are really successful. And the first question I ask them is, why do you want to go to two practices? What are you expecting to happen at two practices that is not happening at one? And that digs into, is this a financial incentive? Is this an ego incentive? And I don't mean that in a negative sense, but just like they feel really passionate about what they're doing and they want, two spots with their name on it. But what are you looking to gain from going to one to two? And the reason I ask that is because from a financial standpoint, there's not much to be gained. It doesn't make sense to stop at two in the same way it doesn't make sense to stop at three, um, because you have to build more time and energy and systems into getting there than what you get out financially. And so I always say, like, you should go to two to learn whether you want to go to three,
mm,
but it's not a good stopping point unless you have a good reason for it. My brother's going to be a dentist and I want to work with him and he's going to practice at other location. We just want to work together, or my wife or whatever, my best friend. But, like, unless you're solving a super specific problem like that, it doesn't make financial sense. And then you take on more responsibility, when you go from whatever the average dental office being maybe 6 employees to 10 or 11 employees or 12, you've got twice the number of people who have problems. So you have twice the problems, but you're still in the chair a lot. And so it's just, what is exciting to you, and if it's the growth, then go do it. But realize that that growth's not going to stop being exciting at two. You're going to want to go down this journey, and that's fun. And I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. But if it's just to stop at two, I think what you're going to realize is this is more than twice as hard. I'm not making nearly enough money to pay for it. So people think twice the practice is twice the money. It's just not how the math works out. And so you have to, again, coming back to the why, you really have to have a purpose between what is the difference between one and two practices, and what is that filling up for you. And so I've literally had that conversation a ton of times with close friends, and just trying to push them to find the answer.
So let's say I'm tracking with you, right? I'm like, okay, I want to try two locations to see if I could do three, and then I do three. So when do you think the point is that I'm getting good at it? I have my systems that it does start affecting the financial, that, because you do want impact to the community, but you also want to make a bigger living. Like, what
Yeah.
is that looking at, four practices, five practices? What can they kind of expect
I
when they're
yeah, I can't speak to everybody because I think so many people do this in different ways. Justin and I practiced quite a bit until we got to over 5 offices, and so I think for us that was about the trade-off. Was once we got to 5 offices, the time we were scaling back in dentistry was being answered by what we were scaling up in revenue.
Mhm.
But I mean, there that question isn't really answered until past where we are, because truth be told, there's a lot of dentists in one office who are going to do better financially just staying in that office than they would even at 10 offices. And that's part of the beauty of our field, is you can do really, really well as a dentist if you're doing well in one office. And so I think that the financial numbers don't start to make a ton of sense until you get to higher numbers of practices, unless you really just care about passive income from the sense of not wanting to practice dentistry anymore. If somebody says I want to go from one to two practices because I don't love dentistry, well, then now that makes a ton of sense to me. Okay, yeah, you
And I
gotta
do
figure this
hear
out.
that a lot more
Yeah.
than doing dentistry. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you like the dentistry,
Mhm.
and you continue to practice, and it doesn't make a ton of sense until you get to probably about that 5 practice number. And it's more dialed in than that based on revenue, but it's definitely not two. And so, yeah, unless you say I hate dentistry and I need a way out, then okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or I love this journey and I want to test it, and that makes sense. or yeah, I've got somebody really special in my life and I want to do this with them. That
Mm.
makes sense. But otherwise, it's going to be a bit, and that's why the journey's fun and exciting and hard. But when you're up late at night thinking, why am I doing this? You have to have a good reason for that. Otherwise, you're going to fail. You're going to drop out.
Yeah, very insightful. I don't think a lot of people can sit and talk with someone that has, done what you've done. I think they'll really appreciate that advice.
Yeah.
Okay, this is wow. We're gonna have to do this again, but this was amazing. I know we're kind of at time and I want to respect your time today. If you could just give us like what's the one belief you hope every listener takes away from today? Like just listening to you, just like if you would take one thing that we talked about today or look into something that we mentioned, what would that one thing be?
Yeah, I sound like a broken record with this, and I've said it a lot over the last couple of days, so I'm a little self-conscious to even saying it again. But um, it's just that this is your journey and your game, and you get to set the rules of what makes you win or lose. And so it doesn't matter. Have fun, enjoy it, do it for the purpose that fills you up, that makes you happier to go home at the end of the day and take care of the ones you love the most. Um, because ultimately, no matter what, there are so many people that can make you feel so small, like you've accomplished nothing. And there's so many people who can make you feel so big, like you're on top of the world. And neither one is true. You get to decide. And so I, I again just said this last week on another podcast, but Rick Workman, who's a CEO of Heartland Dental, he doesn't know within 10 practices how many offices he has. I am a rounding error for that guy. And you're here pumping me up, telling me how great we are and all we've done. And I appreciate that. And it is sweet and it is kind. And I love the sunshine and grace that you're showing me. But ultimately, some guy in my same industry is like, who the heck is this kid? And then you go up from there, and Elon Musk doesn't know who Rick Workman is, and he's the richest dentist on the planet. And so it's just like none of it matters, you know. And so much of what I dial into when I look at this journey is like I actually kind of love that night in that office with my brother. I love the moments that I got to practice with my wife as a dentist. I took out my son's first tooth last night and I made my daughter some fake teeth for Halloween. I love that I still get to do that. Like those are the things that I will remember when I'm looking back on this journey so much more than how many practices that I have at what age or whatever. It just nobody cares. I care because it's my journey. But even the people who listen to this podcast, even if it hits them hard like a ton of bricks, they're going to forget my name next week. Like they just won't care. They just don't know who I am. They don't care. And that's the beauty of it all. Is like it's for me. So it's for me and my family, make the rules in a way that I get to win the game. And if I keep that in mind and I can drive my kids in that same way to find a career that they get to make the rules and play the game, then I think I've done my job and that's super exciting. And so many people just get wrapped up in the ego of like what they think other people are going to care about. And that is from everything in dentistry, from do you place implants? Do you do sedation? Do you do this? Do you do that? To do you have this many practices or this much EBITDA or this much revenue? And it's just like, no, I don't know. What is it to you? Just like I'm having fun. Let's go have fun and do this. Let's change lives. Like I want to be an impact on somebody's life. I want to have that connection. And I love that I get to do it in this way. And I hope people find that for themselves. Like that's what I want for people the most.
Love it. Mic drop. I think I
There
grab
you
the
go.
mic behind me and do
There
this.
you go. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Colin. This
for
has just
sure.
been absolutely fabulous. I just know the listeners are going to love it, and I know we'll get more information and be able to do this again.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, I hope there's one little tidbit of some value there.
Absolutely.